My name's Leslie Countryman. I am one of the coordinators of our community events Tuesday at Rutgers project. It's a pilot project that has been going on since January of 2023. And we have a lot of wonderful things coming up. Excuse me, I've been running. To December 5th. So please take our flyers and spread the word. But tonight is a very special night. My colleague, Peter Rinaldi, who's up on the bridge with the very annoying center light, is we have been working with John Christopher Jones on this project for a long time. And we're really excited to bring it to you tonight. And I wanted to just say a little bit about John Christopher Jones, who's known as Chris to his family and friends. He is a New York-based actor with over almost 50 years of stage experience. And tonight, you're going to hear his story on these screens about his journey from being an actor to becoming a translator. Tonight, we're focusing on his 5 plays from Chekhov that he translated. And I would say it's very fair to say that Chris absolutely lives and breathes the theater. So you're going to see a passionate wordsmith, someone who's very dedicated to his craft, and also loves to tell stories. So tonight, we're going to see him on the screen, but we also have the incredible pleasure of having many of his translations, selected scenes, being brought to life by this amazing cast behind me. So we have Kathryn Erbe, John Horton, David Murray Jaffe, Shami, Jay McCormick, Marjan Neshat, Adam Petherbridge, and Scott Schafer. So thank you so much for coming. Chris is not up for a Q&A tonight, so we're going to roll after a couple of announcements. After the program is over, we're going to open up to having a reception and more conversation. So thank you so much for being here, and let the story begin.
Now that's a theater. No artificial scenery. The eye goes to the lake and the horizon. The curtain goes up at 8:30 just as the moon starts to rise.
Magnificent.
But the whole effect will be ruined if Nina is late. She should be here by now. Her father and stepmother watch her like hawks. It's like breaking out of prison every time she leaves home.
Konstantin, straighten Soren's collar.
Your hair and your beard are a mess. You need a trim.
A tragedy of my life. Even when I was young, I always looked a wreck. Like I was drunk, etc., etc. I was never a favorite of the ladies. Why is my sister so angry today?
Why? Because she's jealous and bored. It will be Nina on stage tonight, not her, so she hopes it goes badly. She hates my play. She hasn't even read it.
Really? You think?
I know. She's angry because it will be Nina's triumph tonight, not hers. My mother is a fascinating psychological specimen, truly brilliant, so gifted. She's extremely well read. She can recite all of Tolstoy's poems by heart. An angel when it comes to caring for the sick. But God help you if you mention Duza in her presence. No, she alone has to be the star. You've got to say how marvelous she was in Camille. And of course, out here in the country, nobody cares about nonsense like that. Which drives her crazy, so she takes it out on us. She's superstitious, too, never burns 3 candles. Dreads the 13th day of the month. Oh, and she's stingy. I know for a fact she has 70,000 in a bank in Odessa, but ask her for a kopeck and she bursts into tears.
You've got it in your head that your mother hates your play and you're upset. Relax. She adores you.
She loves me not. Loves me not. Loves not, see? She doesn't love me. Why should she? She needs for the world to see her as young and alive and in love. But I pose a problem. I'm a constant reminder that She's no longer young. When I'm not around, she's 32. When I am, she's 43. She hates me for that. And it's no secret that I loathe and despise her kind of theater. For her, it's a mission. It's her gift to mankind. But it's boring and conventional. The curtain rises on yet again a room with 3 walls where yet again we are shown people eating and drinking, loving, walking, and wearing coats, speaking yet again familiar lines with a tidy moral thrown in. It's the same old stuff. I want to run screaming like Maupassant ran from the Eiffel Tower.
But we must have the theater.
This version of Anton Chekhov's The Seagull was translated by John Christopher Jones in 2012. But the story doesn't begin there. The year is 1991. The place, the MacArthur Theater, Princeton, New Jersey.
I was in the production of Three Sisters at MacArthur Theater in Princeton. Emily Mann was directing it. And it had Ed Herman as Vershinin, Linda Hunt as Olga, Fran McDormand as Masha. I was playing her husband, Kulig. And I noticed in my first entrance, the scene, there were 5 places where I had a difficult time going from one thought to the next. And I looked up in the original Russian text. I had taken Russian in college as my language requirement. And I didn't remember much of it, but I used a dictionary. And I found that in those 5 places, Lanford Wilson, the translator of our version, had either added or subtracted, deleted a line. Wow. So I thought I've got a pretty sophisticated ear for this.
Yeah.
So I decided to translate my whole part to see if I could find some clues, and I did. I found some good clues. There's in the fire scene, Kulig is 3 in the morning and he's fallen asleep, and his wife comes in and he sees her and he opens his eyes and he sees her. Milia moya Masha, Doroga moya Masha, which means my sweet Masha, my dear Masha, my kind Masha, my good Masha. I translated those lines. But notice the Russian has, it's all focused on the lips. Milia moya Masha, Doroga moya Masha, moya Masha. He sees her and he goes, Milia moya Masha, Doroga moya. So I got, from the sound of the words, I got that. It could be easy. Yum, 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 yum.
You asleep, Fyodor?
What?
You should go home.
My Masha, my precious Masha.
She's tired. Let her rest, Fedya.
I'm going post-haste. My dear, sweet, beautiful wife, my one and only, I love you.
Amo amas amat. Amamu samatis amant.
She's really astonishing. I've been married to you for 7 years, but it seems like yesterday. God's truth. No, honestly, you are an astonishing woman. I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed.
Every sentence has about 10 decisions you get to make.
Yeah.
And you get to make them. Is the proper word annoying or disturbing?
Right.
What am I looking
Yeah.
for?
And what makes you make that decision, though? Like,
well, it could be the sound of the word. Here's one for you. Masha has a loose tongue. She says things that are inappropriate in public, on the cusp of acceptable. She has a loose tongue.
Yeah.
And she says at one point, "Short, short, short, short." And that means damn or hell. But it sounds like shit. Shit. Hooligan says we're going to go to the headmaster, where he teaches as a teacher in the school. He's going to take the families on a nature walk, 4 o'clock. So we'll go there this afternoon. And she says, "I'm not going." And he says, "Masha." And so she says, "Short." So the question is, do you have her say shit or do you have her say hell?
Yeah.
The word sounds like shit.
Right.
Shit. Short.
Yeah.
But it sounds sort of wrong to a contemporary ear. It's too contemporary.
Right.
So you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
What you're going to say.
Yeah.
But if you know that shit, it's an emotion that is strangled out in the word shit, short.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
This from John Christopher Jones's preface to his translation of The Three Sisters. Aren't there enough translations of The Three Sisters? Why do we need another? My reason was basically to see if I could. And I believe that if I ever did finish my translation, it would be one of the best available. 2 reasons for this. One, I have tried to remain sensitive to the rhythms and sound of Chekhov's language. And 2, I have labored to construct dialogue which resembles the way human beings actually talk. Occasionally, very occasionally, I have made a conscious choice to alter the text. In those instances, my primary consideration has always been, how can I best serve the spirit of the character?
Ivan Romanich. Good old Ivan Romanich.
What, my pet, my precious?
Tell me, why do I feel so good today? Like I was sailing this enormous blue sky. Great white birds gliding around me. Why is that? Why?
White bird.
When I woke up this morning, I got out of bed and washed my face. And all of a sudden, everything in the world made sense. I know how to live. Good old Ivan Romanich, I know the answer. Man must work by the sweat of his brow. It doesn't matter who he is. That's why we're here. The path to happiness, ecstasy. How perfect to be a laborer and get up at dawn and break rocks outside, or a shepherd, or a teacher teaching children, or an engineer on the railroad. Oh my God. Not to be human. Better to be an ox, better to be a mule so long as you work than those women who wake up at noon, then takes her coffee in bed, then spends 2 hours getting dressed. Oh, that's disgusting. Like sometimes when it's scorching out and you're dying of thirst, that's how I need to work. And if I don't start getting up early and working, Ivan Romanich, you just stop being my friend.
I'll stop.
Sounds like you almost have to know English very well,
yes.
Not necessarily Russian.
Well, that's the thing. Brian Gulick, the artistic director of a classic stage company, commissioned me to do a translation of A Month in the Country. Erica Schmidt directing, Peter Dinklage in the cast. There's a character in it as a tutor, a young tutor. He says, they ask what he's doing. He says, well, I'm working on a translation from the French. Oh, you speak French? No. How can you do a translation? He says, I speak Russian. So I speak English.
Yeah. And you know English very well. Like you're a wordsmith, if you will. You're a word aficionado, maybe.
Of the fourth order. which is not very high. Then there's stuff that you don't know how to translate. Like, I was doing a play, Cymbeline, a lesser-known Shakespeare work, playing the part of Cloten, which rhymes with rotten. And there was a Russian troupe. We were on the main stage, and there was a Russian troupe putting on Three Sisters in the studio theater, 2 flights up. So I'd come off my exit, and I'd go up and watch till my next entrance. And there was one thing that I wanted to ask them. There's a line in Three Sisters, if by Solioni, who's this dark, poetical avenger, he says the wrong thing on purpose to shock. He has a line, if a man philosophizes, we call it philosophy. If a woman does, pull my finger. But what the hell is this? Just pull my finger. So I asked one of the actors in the Russian troupe that had been working on the play for 3 years. And it's their language, their history. What is it? Pull my finger. There's a Russian feeling that if you pull someone's finger while they're sleeping, their dream is revealed. And so another actor said, no, that's not it. Pull my finger. He's being lewd. He's shocking. Pull my finger. It's like my finger is my Johnson. Pull that. No, that's not it. What's the next line? It's Masha's. What are you talking about? You horrible man. She doesn't know what he's talking about. She doesn't know what it is. So it's their language, it's their history, and they have 3 different... Wow. And various translators have done things like, the Guthrie version was, if a woman philosophizes, wow. So is that, wouldn't you like to know?
Whoa.
There's a big spread. So I left it.
You do?
I left it as pull my finger.
Good.
Pull my finger. Liviu Chule, the great Romanian director, directed his first play in the States, United States, at Arena Stage in Washington. It was a play called Leonce and Lena by Georg Bruckner. It's a 17-page play. It's his favorite play of all dramatic literature. Prince Leonce and Princess Lena, they had an arranged marriage from their 2 countries, the country of PP and Tushy. It's his fractured fairy tale for grown-ups. And it's his favorite play of all dramatic literature. So I was lucky enough to be cast in it. And he was a remarkable genius. It suffices to say that I loved him very much. And I worked with him years later, maybe 20 years later at ART in Cambridge, Mass. And I did Platonov for him, which is Chekhov's first play. Unproduced during his lifetime. He was very bitter that the theater didn't put it on in Moscow. So he destroyed destroyed it. Luckily, his brother had a copy of it, which was found maybe 20 years later in some desk somewhere. And it's impossible to produce. It's
5 hours?
5 hours long. It's got a lot of characters. So I did a version of it. It wasn't a success for me. I said to Chule when I went to the audition, it wasn't an offer. And they saw me on a Saturday And they were starting on Tuesday, so they obviously lost their Platonov. I found out later it was Christopher Lloyd. And usually when I do a part, when I was acting, I would gravitate toward those parts that spoke to me, that said, you have to do this material. Yeah. And that voice was not present with Platonov. It was, who do you have to fuck to get out of this show? I told him I don't know how to say one line. If you want to take responsibility for my performance, we should go ahead with it because I trust you. But you're going to have to tell me what you want and wherever possible, then show me. So he gave me exactly what he wanted. And he said to me, I'm all right with you. I just have to tell you once and you get it. But at one point I remember him saying, Grease, I can't give you everything.
In those days, we loved our women. We revered them. Put them on a pedestal. That's where they belonged. They were better than us.
Those were the days, all right.
In Moscow last year, I saw a young man at the opera. He was crying. He was so moved by the music.
You don't say.
I do say. But the point I'm making is that all the people around him found his tears amusing. They laughed at him, causing him to flee the theater in shame. In my day, people respected emotion. No one laughed at tears.
In your day, people were idiots.
In my day, people who loved music didn't have to leave the theater. You're yawning. Am I boring you?
You're boring me. No, not at all. Maybe we could change the subject, though.
I'm just saying, in my day, we had respect for women and for feelings.
And nowadays we don't.
It grieves me to say it, but nowadays we don't.
So you think women belong on a pedestal?
Yes, I do.
He's a romantic.
Nikolai picks up a violin and with enthusiasm plays badly.
Nikolai, you're making noise, not music. Put the fiddle away.
My music is so moving, I'm going to cry.
That's right. Go ahead and mock me. You proved my point exactly.
And what exactly is your point?
Oh, for God's sake, don't encourage him.
We've lost something of substance and value. Platonov agrees with me.
Friend Platonov is hardly an authority.
Platonov is not an authority on anything. He is, however, a shining example of the confusion that characterizes the modern era. He is the hero of the as yet unwritten great Russian novel of our time. No, people these days are without weight. And how could they be otherwise? There's no moral compass. We cannot find our footing. A great uncertainty has woven its way into the fabric of our lives. Chaos reigns. And Platonov is at the very center of this chaos.
Later on in the play, Porfiry tells Platonov a story about his father.
We once served on the same jury, your father and I. A surveyor was on trial for taking bribes. We all wanted to convict, but your father wouldn't let us. He argued for acquittal, fought us tooth and nail for hours. Finally, he said, if you can swear you don't take bribes yourselves, I will find him guilty. Of course, we couldn't. So we had to let him off. A great man, your father. So
He wasn't kind to me. All I ever saw in those eyes of his was disappointment. What I hated most about him was how peacefully he died. As if he'd led an honest life.
Do not speak ill of the dead.
You got it wrong. Speak ill of everything.
Love the movie, Nikita Mikhalkov's movie, Russian movie.
An unfinished
Unfinished
piece for
piece
player
for
piano.
player piano,
Yeah.
which is the first two acts of Platonov. And he also threw in a short story something that's not in Platonov that Chekhov wrote.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of the greatest wonders of this or any other world. Carnivore, horse thief, burglar, assassin, the devil's own hangman, the monster in our midst. I give you Ossip.
Funny.
Why are you here, Ossip?
I wanted to wish you well.
All right, you've done that. Now go. Get something to eat in the kitchen on your way out. How many of my trees did you steal this winter?
Just 3 or 4.
Liar.
May I kiss your hand?
What the hell? Why not?
You are kind, madam.
What are you working on now, Ossip?
I'm planning a few robberies.
Could he be any more cynical?
What's cynical?
From the Greek. In your language, it means someone who is a real bastard and is proud of it. Look at that face. Made of stone, not flesh. The toughest man on earth.
That's enough. Ossip, go.
Ossip exits.
My wife tried to kill me last night with a red-headed lover. There I was, outdoors, sleeping under the apple trees, in deep and peaceful slumber, when all hell breaks loose and I awake with Ginger Boy choking the life out of me. The old bitch, nothing but skin and bones, is trying to decapitate me with a garden hoe.
Your head seems to have survived intact. Should we say a prayer for the garden hoe? I just read this story, and I can't get it out of my head. The first sentence hooked me. He told everyone he was a poet, but a student is really what he was. He'd walk along the river at night, holding her hand. He'd recite his poems to her. They'd talk about their plans, about their future together.
Who wrote this story?
Somebody. I don't know who. The most striking thing about the girl was her hair, very long and shiny, and it smelled just like the air before it starts to rain. She had to go to Petersburg. I'll be back soon. 3 days at the most, she said. He took her to the station, saw her off at midnight, held her in his arms and cried, "My darling, my love, you are the best thing about me." 3 days came and went, followed by 3 more. A month went by. Every day he went to the station. He met each train from Petersburg and lived on hope. He drank and drank and drank, and with each drink, a little of his hope drowned. He stopped writing poems, woke up, and became an ordinary man.
So that's my translation of the story.
And that's a Chekhov story.
A Chekhov story.
And you felt that should be entered there because why?
Because I'm not sure if I'm the right spot for it, but I like it.
Yeah. You feel like Platonov hasn't seen its glory yet as a play.
No.
Your production that you acted in certainly wasn't the definitive production.
No.
But you think your translation is a definitive translation?
It's not a translation, it's an adaptation, because it's 2 hours long.
So let's talk about the difference between a translation and an adaptation. You know, this is a terminology that people, there's a lot of controversy over this.
Well, there's a great debate over people's owning their versions.
Right.
Because they come up with those versions based on all the versions that they've been introduced to.
Translation from 1929.
How do you do?
How are you, Miss Nina? Owing to an unforeseen development of circumstances, it seems that we are leaving here today. You and I shall probably never see each other again, and I'm sorry for it. I seldom meet a young and pretty girl now. I can hardly remember how it feels to be 19, and the young girls in my books are seldom living characters. I should like to change places with you, but for an hour, to look out at the world through your eyes and so find out what sort of little person you are.
Anne Dunnigan's translation of the same lines from 1964.
Good morning, Boris Alexeyevich.
Good morning. Things have taken an unexpected turn, and it appears we are leaving today. Not very likely that you and I shall meet again, and I'm sorry. I don't often meet young girls, youthful and interesting. I've forgotten how it feels to be 18 or 19. I can't picture it very clearly, and that's why the young girls in my novels and stories are generally false. I'd like to be in your shoes, if only for an hour, to find out how you think, and in general, what a pretty young girl is like.
John Christopher Jones's translation from 2013.
Hi there.
Oh, hello. Apparently something's come up. It looks like we'll be leaving today. We probably won't be seeing each other again. I'm sorry about that. It's not often I meet a pretty young girl like you. I can't even begin to remember what it's like to be 19. That's probably why the young girls in my stories are not fleshed out. I'd like to be you, even for just 1 hour. See the world through your eyes. Find out who you are.
And I would like to be you.
Why?
To know what it's like to be famous. What is it like? How does it make you feel?
Feel? Well, I don't think it makes me feel anything. I think that you think I'm more famous than I am.
But they write about you in the papers.
And if they say nice things, I feel lucky. And if they criticize me, I guess I get a little moody for a couple of days.
You have such a wonderful life. I'm so envious. Fate treats people so differently. Some have to drag themselves through a miserable life, one without pleasure or meaning. But then there are those, the 1 in a millions, like you, for instance, whose lives are exciting. You're so lucky.
Lucky? Fate? These are just words. They mean as much to me as candies, which I never eat. You are very young and very nice.
Your life is so wonderful.
The Classic Stage Company, the artistic director was Brian Kulick, and he's the one that sort of established me as a translator. I did a translation of Three Sisters for the whole play after the show closed, and it took me a year because I was working on acting jobs, and so I had it, it stayed in the drawer for 20 years, and I submitted it to Brian for consideration when they did using my translation. When they did, he said it's a very good translation, but we were committed to another translator we've already accepted, and that was Paul Schmidt, who's considered the gold standard of translators of Chekhov. And so he said, but how about this? What if we commission you to do a translation of Cherry Orchard for our production of Cherry Orchard? Because they were going to do the 4 major plays. So I was commissioned to do the Cherry Orchard. After I worked on my first pass at it, and I emailed Brian and said, I think the next stage is for us to do a reading of it. I'd like to hear it. He says, oh, Chris, we're not at that stage. I've got to show it to Diane Wiest and John Turturro, who are doing the two major parts, and Andre Belgrado, the director. I said, but you commissioned me to do it. You're going to do it. He said, not if they don't want to do it. So that was a rude awakening. Bumped into Diane, and we talked about this and that, avoiding the elephant in the room. And
had she already received the copy?
She'd received the copy. I said, well, what did you think of the translation? She says, well, the scenes were very good, but the speeches, I thought, could use a little work. I said, well, let's do some work. We'll get together and I'll answer all your questions.
Yeah.
She says, well, you have him say, sweetheart. I think darling is better. And I said, well, let's try darling. Okay, that sounds good. I went through the whole script, took about 5 hours.
So you didn't find it weird to sit with an actor and have them kind of persuade you?
No, because I'm an actor myself, and I know that was the problem with my Platonov. The first time with Chula, it was a bad translation, and that's why I didn't know how to say the line. So it turned out that Diane was leaning towards my version. Turturro liked the Van Itali version. And the director, Andre Belgrado, just wanted any version that he could change during rehearsal. So what Brian figured out was the best way to decide was to do 3 readings on 3 days. One my translation, one Van Itali, and one Paul Schmidt.
Were you present at all 3?
I was present at all 3. They all agreed that mine was the best.
That must have felt good.
And with Turturro, he was amazing. He in our session, where we tried to make him feel comfortable, he says, he had spread 7 versions out, 7 different translations out on the table. He says, I like what he says here. Let's say that. I said, we can't. He said, why not? It's called plagiarism. I think the technical word is plagiarism. And on the day I was walking to the first rehearsal, I was walking in the streets of New York to the rehearsal hall where we were going to do the first read-through of my translation. I got a call from Brian Kulick saying, just a heads up, Belgrado says it's fine for you to be at the first reading, but he doesn't want you in the rehearsal hall for the first 2 weeks. And of course, the reason for that was he wanted to change what I'd written without the obstacle of a speed bump impeding his progress. He made 112 changes in those 2 weeks, and he didn't consult me on any of them.
Wow. So
I was the translator, and it was a good translation, but I had someone who had a different agenda.
Yeah.
And
were any of those worth keeping?
I gave him 100 of the 112 outright. And the 12 that remained, I had 8 that I compromised with him on, and 4 that I asked to keep. And
did he give you those 4?
He didn't. So I asked Brian Kulick, what do we do? He says, he's a Romanian. I don't think they have the word, what's the word I'm looking for?
You don't have it either.
I don't have the word.
Compromise?
Compromise.
So a translator has no standing like a playwright does.
Well, it does with these mammoths.
Right, okay.
Michael Frayn.
Yeah.
Or
Williams, Tennessee Williams.
Tennessee Williams. But there's a character, Epihodov. His name is the Epihodov, but the ho is pronounced ho, ho. So it's a ho, epichodov, epichodov, epichodov. So you're getting a sense of who the guy is.
Yeah.
Epichodov. He's eccentric.
Frost this morning, 3 degrees, and the cherry trees are in bloom. I am not enamored of this climate of ours, not at all enamored. The climate has a reluctance to exhibit beneficence even on this one day. And, Amelia Alexievich, permit me to tell you, furtheredly, that 2 days ago I bought myself some boots, and I can bear witness that they squeak with a particular horribility. On them, what can I smell?
Go away, you're exhausting.
Every day I am struck by misfortune, but I am not bitter. I am used to it. I smile.
Dunyasha enters with kvass.
I go.
He knocks over a chair.
There, you see? Permit me to use a word, instance of my predicament, as it were. This is just marvelous.
He exits.
I guess I can tell you, Ermolai Alexeyevich, Epichodov has proposed to me.
Ah.
He's a good man, but sometimes when he starts to speak, you can't understand a word he's saying. He's decent and thoughtful, but unintelligible. I think I like him. He's crazy about me. The man's unlucky, though. Every day something happens. They tease him about it. They salute and call him Major Catastrophe.
So Belgrade didn't like Major Catastrophe. And in most of the translations, it's 22 misfortunes. So, but I thought Major Catastrophe was a good solution to the humor. Trying to get jokes in translation is a little tricky.
Sure.
That's why you're saying that I'm a wordsmith, and I like to do anagrams and see how you can change using what you have into something else. And
what was his problem with Major Catastrophe?
His problem was that it would take the audience too long to get the joke. Well, so he proposed Mishapovich. That's a real knee slapper. Boy.
Wow.
And we settled for Master Disaster.
Wow.
But I like Major Catastrophe because they could salute him every time they saw him. They get a running thing. There are basically 3 types of language that Chekhov uses. One is everyday common speech, which is the way people talk. It has it has the hesitations of thought and the searching for words and the immediacy of the moment. But it's what we call the quotidian, which is everyday common speech. And then we have poetic language, which is poetry, images, and then there's philosophic speculation, the world of ideas, refined ideas. A poetic example would be also from the Cherry Orchard.
What have you done to me, Petya? I don't love the cherry orchard anymore like I used to. My favorite place on earth was this orchard.
All of Russia is our orchard. It's a huge country and a beautiful one. There are many glorious places on it. Think on this, Anya. Your grandfather, your great-grandfather, and those who came before all owned serfs, owned living souls, and those souls are still around today. In every cherry in the orchard, in every leaf, in every branch, they're staring at you. Can you hear their voices? It's haunted, your orchard, by its terrible, dark past. And when in the evening or at night you walk through it, you sense a faint glow, as if the old cherry trees were dreaming of all that went on here over the years. And the weight of this dream leaves a great sadness. In any event, it's been 200 years and we haven't learned a thing. All we do is philosophize, complain, get drunk. It's pretty obvious. If we want to live in the present, we must first atone for the past, and that can only be done by suffering, by back-breaking physical labor. Understand this, Anya.
The house we live in belongs to ghosts. It has for a long, long time. I'll leave this place. I give you my word.
Take the keys and throw them in a well and run away, as free as the wind.
So that's an example of shifting from everyday speech to poetic speech. Yeah. And Belgrader wanted to cut Trofima's speech, and I thought I did a great job translating it. I thought it needed. He thought he just went on too long, but so I had a major catastrophe.
Major fight about that?
Master disaster was all right. Not only do you have to translate, you have to get identify and commit fully to the type of language that it is. But you've got to be able to know when it shifts to a different language. Right. And be able to do that. And it has to be seamless. It can't be clunky. It's as if you're on a boat in the ocean, and the ocean is rolling like this, very calm day. And there's nothing going on above the water, the air. And then all of a sudden, a deep sea creature leaps out. That's the poetry, the elevated language. Yeah. And then it slips back into the water, and it is no more. Interesting. That was how Brian said what he said one of the strengths of my translating was. Here's one I like. Trofimov says in Cherry Orchard, "What difference does it make if the estate is sold today or not? It's been over for a long time now. You can't turn back. The path's grown over. Relax. Don't deceive yourself. For once in your life, look the truth straight in the face." What truth? Where you see the truth, I see nothing. You have the answers to all the important questions. But tell me, dear, isn't that because you're young? Because you haven't had the time to live with the consequences of your answers? You are fearless about the future. Isn't it because you cannot imagine anything terrible? Because life up to now has been hidden from your young eyes? You have more courage than we do. You're more honest. You look at life more deeply. Be generous and have mercy on me. I was born here. My father and mother lived here. My grandfather, too. I love this house. I couldn't understand my life without the cherry orchard. I'd be a stranger to myself. And if it absolutely has to be sold, then sell me with it. My son was drowned here. Have pity on me, good, kind man. I do have pity with all my heart. Yes, but you don't have to say it like that. Like that. God, I feel awful. There's so much noise here. Every sound makes me jump. And when I go off by myself, I'm afraid of the silence. Don't judge me harshly, Petya. I love you as if you were family. I'd be happy to let Anya marry you. I would, but you should be working, darling. Put an end to your studies. You don't do anything. You just wander about from place to place. It's crazy, isn't it? Yes. And you've got to do something about that beard of yours. You look so peculiar. That's philosophical, quotidian, and poetic. Uncle Vanya, very interesting. The play in Russian is titled Dyadya Vanya. Dyadya Vanya. Did you say it? Say it a few times.
Dyadya Vanya.
Dyadya Vanya.
Dyadya
Vanya.
Wow, yeah.
Dyadya is great feeling for Dyadya Vanya. So Chekhov's plays spring from a significant event in Uncle Vanya. The significant event is the arrival of the professor and his young wife, and the havoc that it causes.
Have some tea.
I don't think that'll do it, Nun.
Vodka? Would that do you?
Yeah, I think I'll try a day without vodka. It's too hot for it anyway. How long have we known each other?
How long have... good Lord, let me see. When you first came here, Sonia's mother was still alive, and you were here 2 winters before she died. So that would make it 11 years ago. It's maybe more.
Have I changed a lot since then?
God, yes. In those days you were handsome. You haven't aged well. It's the drink.
Just 10 years and I've turned into somebody else. You know why? I work too hard. 17 hours a day, I don't sleep at night. I just lie there like a shadow, terrified someone out there might be sick and need me before dawn. I haven't had a day off since I met you. No wonder I got old. It's a stupid life and it wears you down. You're surrounded by stupid people. Of course, you're going to get a little stupid yourself. With this mustache, look at it. This monstrosity I produced on my face, it's as ridiculous as the rest. My brain's all right, I can still think. It's my feelings that I don't desire anything, I don't need anything, I don't love anyone, except for you. I love you. You know, I had a nurse like you when I was little.
How about a little something to eat?
No. A few weeks before Easter, there was that epidemic at Malitskoye, typhus. And I get there, and the peasants are crammed side by side on the floor of their huts, pigs running wild among them, excrement, blood, smoke, unimaginable. The whole day, without a break, without a bite to eat, I nursed the sick. Finally, I get home, and my day's not over. They had brought in a lineman from the railroad, and I got him to the operating table. I put him under the chloroform, and he goes and he dies on me. And I, who had lost all feeling, am suddenly overcome with guilt, as if I had killed the man on purpose. I sat down and I closed my eyes, and this thought was suddenly there. Will people in the future, say 200 years from now, people we are paving the way for, will they be grateful for all we have done? They'll forget all about us.
They will forget, but God remembers.
You heard a lot about Chekhov doesn't write text, he writes subtext. What people are saying is not what's going on, it's what's 90% of the bottom of the iceberg is, it's only 10% of it that's above. So that people's lines, what they say to us is subterfuge, camouflage, it's misinformation. So we know that they've been waiting for 2 hours to drink tea at the wrong time. So she says, have some tea. Let's start without them.
Right.
Fuck them.
A seemingly nothing line about tea.
Is a revolt.
Right.
Let's tell them how we feel about this. Let's at least act like responsible human beings rather than, if he's going to treat us this way, he doesn't deserve the courtesy of us all dining at the same time.
Have a nice nap?
Peachy. It's all gone to hell since the professor and his wife moved in. I sleep too much. I eat too much. I drink much too much. It's no good. Sonia and I used to work together all day long. Now she does it all alone while I drink and sleep. This is worse than not good.
The whole house is a mess. We used to have dinner at 1 like normal people. But now we have it at 7. The professor stays up all night, and suddenly, at 2 in the morning, he wants tea. Wake up the servants. Heat the samovar. Make some tea.
Are they staying long?
Just 100 years. The professor has decided to make this his home.
The tea's been ready for 2 hours, and they're out walking?
The steamiest day of the summer, and he wears an overcoat and galoshes.
Well, he's just trying to take care of himself.
What about her? Huh? Is she not the most beautiful woman in the world?
What's the news?
No news. It's all old. I'm just the same. No, I'm worse. I'm lazier. I don't do anything but bark like a dog. My mother, the old harpy, holds forth from mindless authority about women's rights. 1 foot in the grave, and still she has all the answers.
And the professor?
With brain on fire and furrowed brow, from dawn to dusk he'll scribble. He doesn't tire, and still somehow all he writes is drivel. I pity the poor paper he writes on. What I can't wait for is his autobiography. Oh, what a page-turner that will be. As thrilling as yesterday's toast. Retired professor tormented by gout, headaches, and rheumatism, and a liver engorged by malice and envy. He lives on the estate of his first wife because he's too poor to live in the city. He complains about everything, and yet he's the luckiest man alive. Son of a deacon, he becomes a professor and marries the daughter of a senator. He insists on being called Your Excellency. But here's the good part. He's been lecturing and writing about art for 25 years, and he doesn't know a goddamn thing about it. For 25 years, he's been spitting out other people's scholars' ideas about realism, naturalism, and all other fatuous isms. For 25 years, he's been scribbling gibberish. And he is proud of that. He masqueraded as an authority on art, leaving absolutely no mark in the field, and all he accomplished in 25 years was to keep a better man out of a job. Look at him. Those strutting across the earth like a mighty god from antiquity, the great Pooh-Bah.
From Jones's preface to his translation of The Three Sisters. I probably should touch upon Chekhov's use of punctuation. He seemed to be very fond of the ellipse, the comma, and the exclamation point, not to mention the pause. I've kept them pretty much as they are in the Russian, and there's a reason for this. They are Chekhov's private directions for the actors in his play. Pauses and exclamation points speak for themselves. As for those commas, they tell us that his characters, in addition to having a lot to say, have a need to say it. There's a passion, a drive to their thoughts and feelings. Their spirits are too large for a period. Periods mean stop. They can't stop until they hit a pause. When he uses the ellipse, Chekhov's telling the actor, take your foot off the gas. Take your foot off the brake. Coast. Drift. He uses punctuation, though not grammatically correct. It's a very helpful tool to the actor who must speak the lines.
I wouldn't leave a sentence letting it stand by itself in the frame of the whole piece. I wouldn't leave one line until I felt this is a line I'd like to say on stage if I were an actor.
And this maybe is what sets you apart from other translators, because you literally know what it's like to be on a stage, to say not just lines, to say Chekhov lines.
Yeah.
And so this obviously has to be an advantage, and it has to be something that people who are wanting to do productions would want to get your translation, yeah. I would think, or at least look at it.
It's interesting, because of my Parkinson's, my acting lasted much longer than I thought it would. I've had Parkinson's for 20 years. I was diagnosed 20 years ago. And the trick is, with that disease, to find connections to the world. And translating has offered me a whole new life. Instead of it curtailing my career as an actor, it's almost like I get to play all the parts because I get to choose what they say, and that's helped me. That's helped me a lot over the years.
I feel so awful. You can't imagine how awful I feel.
You just have to live with it. Live through the endless parade of days, followed by long, long nights. And we will not complain. We'll work for others from dawn to dusk, from now until we are old. And when we leave this world and stand at heaven's gate, we'll tell the angels of our pain. And then God himself will answer our rough prayers. And then, dear uncle, our real life will begin. A life both beautiful and fine. Looking back on our sorrow here, a tender smile shall cross our lips. And we shall rest. I believe this, Uncle. I believe it.
She kneels and lays her head in Vanya's hands, wearily.
We shall rest.
Waffles plays softly on his guitar.
We shall rest. Imagine, we'll hear the angels singing, see heavens shining like a jewel. All evil and all pain will vanish in an instant. A loving hand will touch the world. Our life will be as tender as a sweet embrace. I believe it. I believe it, Uncle.
She wipes away his tears.
Poor Uncle Vanya. You're crying. You've been unhappy your whole life. Just hold on, Uncle Vanya. Hold on. We shall rest.
She embraces him.
We shall rest.
Waffles plays softly. Nunun knits her stocking.
We shall rest.
Please welcome to the stage John Christopher Jones. Chris is up for a few questions, if anyone has any questions. I have a really pretentious question, and it's a three-part question, but I think if somebody has a question for Chris, we'll go with you first. Anybody? You want me to whip out my pretentious one? It's written down.
Can I use one of the mics?
Yeah, no, you have a mic on. No, this should be on.
Okay.
Nadim, wait. Let's get. Oh, wait. No, you know what? Now it will be.
Okay.
John Christopher Jones.
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you very much for coming.
Chris.
If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Anybody?
And you can ask the cast, too. They're terrific.
Wait, we have a question over here.
Thank you very much. I just have one question. You talked about in the preface to one of of the book that you thought if you did these translations, they would be among the best. Did you do any translations that you thought were not great?
You know, I've loved all the translations I've done. I've done the Month in the Country by Turgenev. We did that at Classic Stage. And my Platonov was published by Dramatist Play Service, which I'm very proud of. I get royalties from it every year. I get $6.32 twice a year. But I have questions about hearing it tonight. I have questions about a couple of things. One was, now I'm forgetting what it was. One was, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's within grasp, but it's getting further away.
Chris, how about I ask my pretentious question really quick?
One of the things that I'm not proud of, the parade of days. The Sonia's last speech. You have to live with it. You have to live through an endless parade of days and long, long nights. The parade of days, it takes a little while to sit with it. and maybe it's too self-conscious a word to choose. But I was thinking of the air that it costs us to blow up the spirits to maintain the parade. So there's a mocking or hollowness to the word. I'm not sure that was good, and I don't know where I came up with Ginger Boy. I'm dreading that the share books. My wife and her redheaded lover tried to kill me last night. Ginger Boy. I don't know where I came up with that. I think I'm dreading that I've stolen it from someone else and just forgot who. I think it's very easy to plagiarize. I made a conscious effort in my translated works to say something different. If everybody says the same thing, why do you always wear black? I'm in mourning for my life. Everybody says that. You can say that. It's not plagiarism. It's even though you didn't get the idea first, you maybe got it the last. But so my mind said, why do you always wear black? Matches my mood. I'm unhappy. So I changed it. I make a conscious effort to change it. So it's not plagiarism. But if I don't recognize where I got the image from, I suspect that I read it in somebody's preface to an article 3 times removed. Anyway.
What was the hardest play of Chekhov's to translate for you?
The hardest, well, they're all so generous in their secrets that there was no hard one. The one that I liked more, that I didn't know as well, was Uncle Vanya. And Vanya and Astroff are 2 malcontents, 2 alcoholic malcontents. And I like the bitter humor. I remember watching a company from Russia do Uncle Vanya, and it was a very rough language. It was instead of slushayet hidumayet. It was K's and it was guttural. It was savage emotion. There was a director that I worked with Marjan Neshat, who was from Russia, and now I've forgotten what he said.
How about a question out here? Question here.
I was told by Boris Fedov that in Russia today, Chekhov is admired more for his works other than his plays. Why would first off, do you think that may be true? And secondly, why are Americans different from Russians in this regard?
Well, he would say that, Dolgozhov would say that we live in a smaller, more intellectual plane. The Russians leap at you. They gesticulate there. They have big emotions and they fly with them. But we're more rational and less emotional. So that's one thing. I'll try to answer a few more. You should ask the cast.
Yeah, here's another question.
Yes.
I can't decide if Chekhov is an optimist or not. On the one hand, when he anticipates the future, it's usually with optimism, but he's always writing about a future so far into the future that the people alive won't be able to enjoy it. Any thoughts on that subject?
Could you restate it? I didn't quite get it.
Well, in your opinion, is Chekhov an optimist or not? And
I think he tells a story with humor. In a lot of his plays, people are in love with the wrong person, a person who can't love them back, and that he finds sad but funny. And I think I like him because his characters suffer in this world, but they live through it, and I like his world.
Okay, we will not let Chris run away. You could talk to him. You could corner him at the reception. But we have a very exciting announcement. If you haven't gotten your fill of John Christopher Jones translations, Ryan has a very special announcement.
Hey, I'm Ryan Chervanko. I'm going to be directing and playing Constantine in a production of The Seagull that Mr. Jones has graciously allowed us to use his translation for. And we're very grateful to Rutgers because we're going to do it in the theater space on the 5th floor. And we're also going to do some performances in here, I think. And as a nod to Vanya on 42nd Street, we're rehearsing and performing it over the course of a year and making a documentary out of it. So the performances will be in spring 2024, and it's very much a community thing, so I hope to see you there. Thanks.
How's that for the future? Let's have some reception goodies. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.